The midwife's hands are rough as she pulls you into the world, and you arrive screaming into a hut that smells like damp straw, manure, and desperation. Your mother is lying on a pile of hay, drenched in sweat and utterly exhausted. The room is dimly lit by a single flickering candle, and the air is thick with the smoky haze from the hearth. Your father, leaning against the wall, takes one look at you and mutters something like, "Another mouth to feed." You're born into a world where survival is a daily battle. No soft blankets or warm cribs for you. Your first bed is a wooden box stuffed with old rags. The roof above leaks whenever it rains, and the mud walls of your home are barely holding together. Your parents don't even bother naming you for the first few weeks. Infant mortality is so high that they don't want to get too attached. By the time you're 5, you're already working. Your first job, acting as a human scarecrow. Armed with a stick and a lot of yelling, you spend hours in the fields trying to scare away crows and other pests. The birds, of course, don't take you seriously, and you quickly learn that being ignored isn't fun, especially when your father yells at you for failing to protect the crops. Your free time consists of hauling water from the village well, gathering firewood, and chasing after the family's one half-dead goat, which has a habit of escaping at the worst times. Play? That's for noble kids. You've never even seen a toy, unless you count the occasional stick you pretend is a sword. Food is as basic as it gets. Breakfast is stale bread dipped in water to soften it. Dinner is porridge, sometimes made from barley, sometimes oats, but always bland. If you're lucky, your family might catch a rabbit or trade for a bit of salted fish. But most days, it's turnips, and more turnips. Hygiene is non-existent. You bathe maybe once a year in a freezing river. Lice and fleas are constant companions, and you've learned to ignore the itching because there's no way to get rid of them. By the time you hit your teenage years, your life is already a blur of endless labor. From sunrise to sunset, you're in the fields, guiding the plow behind a sluggish ox or hacking away at weeds with a dull blade. Your hands are calloused, your muscles are strong, but your back feels like it belongs to someone twice your age. One evening, as you sit by the fire nursing your aching legs, your parents drop the news. It's time for you to marry. Not because you're ready, but because the family needs to secure alliances, land, or livestock. Love? Forget it. This is about survival. Your future spouse is chosen for you, and you meet them for the first time at the village market. They look about as worn out as you do. Mud-streaked clothes, dirt under their nails, but hey, they seem sturdy enough to help in the fields. And, in a world where small mercies matter, they still have most of their teeth. The wedding isn't exactly a fairy tale. A priest mumbles a quick blessing, your families exchange a few awkward smiles, and someone hands you a shared mug of ale. No feast, no music, just a nod of approval from your father and a new life waiting for you. Afterward, you and your new spouse move into a tiny, drafty hut right next to your parents. Why? Because you're expected to help with their farm while somehow managing to start your own. Now the real grind begins. You're not just working to feed yourself anymore. You've got a spouse and, soon enough, kids to take care of. But life doesn't care about your struggles. Twice a year, the Lord's tax collector arrives to take a portion of your harvest. If you don't have enough, they'll take your livestock or even your tools. And let's not forget the church. They demand a tithe too. That's 10% of everything you produce, gone before you can even feed your own family. Weather is a constant gamble. A sudden hailstorm can flatten your crops. A dry summer can scorch them to dust, and a wet spring can drown your fields in mud. You spend sleepless nights worrying about what disaster might come next, knowing one bad season could spell ruin for your family. Disease is another relentless foe. The air is thick with sickness, and every cough or fever could mean the start of something deadly. Even minor injuries are dangerous. A small cut can fester and turn fatal. You've already seen neighbors and relatives carried off by illness, and you know it's only a matter of time before your family faces the same risks. Your kids are growing up just like you. By the time they're old enough to walk, they're already helping out, which usually means getting in the way. You try to teach them the basics: how to plant, how to milk the goat without getting stepped on, and how to keep the chickens from escaping. A lesson you still haven't learned yourself. Congratulations, your child is the same idiot as you. If you make it to your 40s, you're considered ancient. Your body is broken from decades of hard labor. Winter is hard, your hut is freezing, and the thin blanket you share with your spouse does little to keep the cold out. Every night, you wonder if you'll wake up in the morning or if this will be your last winter. Your children now manage most of the heavy work, but you're not completely useless. You keep busy with the smaller, everyday tasks, sharpening tools, patching clothes, and occasionally yelling advice from the sidelines when they're plowing wrong. Your eyesight isn't what it used to be, but you can still spot a crooked furrow from a mile away. Evenings are spent by the hearth, poking at the fire, sipping thin broth, and swapping stories with your neighbors or grandchildren. They love to hear about the wild boar you once chased off. It was probably just a fat pig. When you finally die, it's not a big event. There's no funeral, no grand farewell. Your family digs a shallow grave in the churchyard, and the priest says a quick prayer before moving on to the next burial. You're forgotten within a generation, just another nameless farmer in a long line of nameless farmers.